Hello Scouts and welcome to Scouting at Home. For today's activity we're going to be teaching you an essential skill for Scouts everywhere, and that's how to sew on your own badges. Many Scouts rely on Mum or Dad to do it for them, but it's really great if you can learn how to do it yourself. After all, Mum and Dad aren't always going to be there to do things for you, and one day you might be doing it for your son or daughter. So stay with us as we demonstrate how to sew on a Scout badge onto a uniform, but also have a look at the attached activity sheet, which gives you some tips and advice on how you can do it at home. Good luck and good scouting. For this activity we're going to need some thread and of course a needle. We're going to need some dressmaker's pins. We're going to need some scissors or shears, some fabric, start again. For this activity we're going to need a needle and thread, some shears or scissors, dressmaker's pins, or you can use safety pins, some fabric to sew to, and of course a badge to sew. Now we're actually using the Creating a Better World badge, which can be earned by completing one of the activities on the Taekwondo YouTube channel for the Creating a Better World program. There's a whole bunch of different categories that you can earn this badge with, doing fantastic community service projects through to creating environmental land care projects and so on. So check that out. There's a whole bunch of videos, as I said, but you can also have a look at the official website for Creating a Better World Scout website, as it's a worldwide scouting initiative. To start with, we're going to place our badge where we want to on our fabric. Now if we were sewing this on a uniform, of course, we would want to make sure that that badge is lined up. So it's a good idea to actually put the uniform on while you're pinning the badge in place. And then we're going to use a couple of dressmaker's pins to just pin through the back and back again to the front in two positions, making sure that we're happy that it's in the right position, facing the right direction. Alright. The next thing we're going to have to do is actually thread our needle. So I've got some nice bright red thread here, so it'll stand out well against the yellow. And I'm going to need to allow a fair bit of thread. This is quite a decent sized badge, so we're going to need to make sure that the thread is more than enough to go all the way around. And a good way to gauge that is I try to go at least 4 times as much thread as it would take to go around the circle itself. Now we're going to be doubling it over as well, so that makes for quite a lot of thread in actual fact. So I'm going to measure off about 1 metre of thread here, just to make sure that I've got more than enough. I'm going to snip that with my little clippers there. I'm then going to take that end and we're going to feed it into our needle. Now with a freshly cut end, you'll often find that it's very easy to thread, so if you're struggling to get it through, sometimes just trimming the last little bit off to get rid of any of those little straggly hairs will help a great deal, as we're giving it a little lick just to keep all the threads in a nice tight bundle. And we'll thread our needle. Which is of course always more difficult on camera. There we go. There are little gadgets that you can get for threading needles as well, so if you have one of those, all the better. Now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to get my 2 ends together. I know there's different ways that people do this, but I swear by this method myself. Bring my 2 ends together and I'm going to tie them into a little overhand thumb knot. In fact, a double overhand thumb knot. So I've got a little lump at the end of the thread that won't pull through the badge. So I'll pull that nice and tight. And then we'll trim that off to get rid of the excess, because we don't need those loose threads hanging out the back of our badge. Now to start sewing, what I like to do is actually go where the overlocked edge comes together. There'll be a seam, a little bit of a lump. I like to put the needle through that point there from the back, which will give it something to really anchor into, and not pulling too hard on the first thread through. Just get that knot up against the back of the badge and then feed through in almost exactly the same spot again, and that's going to give you a really solid anchor that you can pull against without the thread coming out. And now it's just a matter of passing our needle through the fabric, running parallel to the edge, and when the needle pops up, you can see it there popping up, I want to make sure it's in just the right position to clip the edge of the badge and really just catch the edge. So with these overlocked badges, it's really easy to hide the thread. So I'm going to pull that through. Now I'm going to go back through my fabric again in exactly the spot where I'm coming out of the badge. So through my fabric, travel across a bit, pop out again, and tuck it through the badge itself. And I'm going to repeat that the whole way around, which is not going to be terribly interesting to watch, so I'll fast forward that. But just to show you on the back there, you can see how it's stepping across a little bit, and that's where it's going through the badge, and then stepping across a little bit, and it'll go through the badge again. So we'll just fast forward that as I repeat this process around the badge. Okay, so we're now on the home stretch. Just a couple of little stitches left to do. And I want to mention a couple of things that I probably didn't cover very clearly before. When I'm pulling the thread through, I'm making sure that I'm keeping this thread all nice and large loop, so as it pulls through, I don't get a tangle. And I want to pull that through nice and smoothly, but before this gets tangled up on itself, I want to make sure that there's no pigtailing going on before I pull that finally through. Otherwise, we can end up with a knot that's very difficult to undo. So keep an eye on that as you sew. And the other thing that I wanted to mention as well is that you want to make sure that you're actually tucking slightly under the edge, because then it doesn't matter what colour thread you've got, because your thread's not actually seen from the top. You can see it actually hides all the thread, even though that's bright red, purple badge, yellow background. You can't see any red thread around the outside there, but on the other side there, you can see it perfectly. There's all the thread. So it really does illustrate how easy it is to use one colour thread to sew all your badges in place. The exception, of course, being if you have one of those badges which doesn't have an overlocked edge, such as our group name tapes. Now, just to finish, and there's a perfect example of that little pigtailing that can happen. So I'll pull that out nice and straight. And just to finish, all I'm going to do is I'm going to basically stitch through the back of the badge itself and come out behind. Let's see if I can get that on camera properly. I'm going to go through the back of the badge itself, just collecting the edge. There we are. I don't need to go along far, just enough so that I've got the needle well and truly into the badge. And then I'm going to take my thread and I'm going to wrap it around the end of my needle using my finger to hold it in place. So as I wrap, each time I wrap, the finger traps it in place. And you go around 2 or 3 times, and you're going to hold that down tight up against the badge and pinch it with your 2 fingers as you push the needle through between your fingers. And what that's going to do is hold the knot still while the thread passes through and creates a knot. And so there we've got a little knot that's now hidden behind our badge. Again, it doesn't matter about the colour of the thread because it's a tiny little knot and it's behind our badge. And we're going to trim off our excess thread right next to the knot.